Hi, I'm Gretchen Bergman, co-founder and executive director of A New Path, Parents for Addiction Treatment and Healing. We advocate for therapeutic rather than punitive drug policy, and we work to reduce the stigma associated with substance use disorders and drug use. I'm also the lead organizer of our national, now international Moms United to End the War on Drugs campaign. Now 35 states and 6 countries, all moms advocating for an end to the drug war that has been so damaging to our families and our communities. Today's topic is the empty chair at the holiday table. We've been doing this campaign for 8 years, and it goes through Thanksgiving through the end of December, and it really addresses how the war on drugs has created empty chairs at our holiday tables. For me, there was many times when my son was incarcerated, and I didn't know whether I belonged at the holiday table with the rest of my family or if I should be visiting him and behind bars. And a stigma for both of my sons have struggled for decades with substance use disorders, heroin addiction. And there were times that one of them wasn't at the holiday table because of stigma. So this campaign addresses the loss of somebody at the holiday table for stigma, incarceration, drug war violence, or unfortunately for too many, opioid overdose or drug-related overdose deaths. So this season, we're really living in a triple crisis of COVID-19, opioid overdose, and systemic racism, and so there's far too many people are having very painful a very painful holiday season. I know for me, my husband and I this year, ironically, were the ones that were missing from the holiday table due to social distancing. But luckily, my sons are doing well in long-term recovery, work as drug and alcohol counselors. So I'm sharing their stories with us today are 3 moms who are representative of the Moms United to End the War on Drugs campaign. And they have some amazing stories, and they are tough, fierce advocates. So I've asked them to come on and tell their stories, and then how that led them to this constant advocacy work that they've been doing for decades. So with me today is start with Lizzy Stewart, whose son was incarcerated as a 3-striker. And she's been raising her grandchildren through all this. Her son Charmie is out now, but I'd love for her to tell her story in just a second. And then with me also is Anita Fisher. Her son Farrell has struggled with co-occurring disorders, and she has been an amazing shepherding your son for so many years to the services that he needed. Charmie Gholson, who's done some amazing work in Michigan with asset forfeiture, the terrible asset forfeiture laws, and she has a personal loss this year, and we're blessed that she's here to talk with us today. So Lizzy, I'm going to start with you, and if each of you would take a couple of minutes just to share your story and how that led you to the advocacy work that you do.
Well, my son broke into a garage, and that in California is a strikable offense, even if it's a $5 item. We went to court thinking my son would get a few years because he had done these stupid things with drug addiction before. Nothing serious, just all minor offenses, in my opinion. He ended up with 70 years to life. To life, meaning he wasn't going to come home unless the Department of Corrections said it was okay. I got on the phone, reached out to my support groups, and became an activist that very day. Families to Amend California, 3 Strikes and a New Path were there to help me through this, and All of Us or None. And I started doing everything and anything that popped into my mind. I started a petition, received over 50,000 signatures. I did a documentary. I was on any newspaper article I could pop my name on to, reaching out to media, asking for help. And I just got a world of support. And Jeremy was the first 3-striker to come home on a commuted sentence, opening the door for thousands more. And our governor here in California at the time was Governor Brown. He even put together a commutation committee to help out with people such as my son. But it took an act of God, and this was not me alone. This was all the support, all the groups. So be strong, reach out there. It tore my heart apart seeing my grandchildren without a parent. Their mother was also incarcerated for drug-related issues. And the empty chair, it was heartbreaking. It was the most hardest time, was the holidays alone without a family member.
And so many of them.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So Anita, would you tell your story? And again, an amazing advocate.
Yes. Thank you, Gretchen, for inviting me to share. My son, it's been a 20-year journey now, but it started actually, we didn't know at the time, it was a mental health diagnosis. And he began to self-medicate with street drugs and alcohol. That led to homelessness, jail, and because of mandatory sentencing for the drug offenses, he was always picked up on something related to drugs. He ended up doing jail time, then prison time. And I can tell you that I visited more prisons across California, and it's just heartbreaking when you see that individual has a mental health condition at the same time. And so I was so blessed to be connected with a new path. Probably during my first years of going to work, I became an advocate through NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, who introduced me to PATH, and I end up, joining the board and served probably for over 10 years. But I'm still an ambassador and always supporting their mission because they helped me to understand so much about. I was always fighting, two things. I was fighting on the drug side, the treatment that my son needed, and then fighting for him to get the mental health care that he needed. And at the time, in the early years, they were not looking at it together. They used to call it dual diagnosis. Now they refer to it as co-occurring disorder. And supposedly the system now is supposed to treat the two together. So I've had many empty chair holidays, in my home, and just how that feels. Sometimes I would try to fake it, because it was my turn to host that dinner, but I would go in the back room and cry, because my son wasn't there, but I was trying to, put up the brave face for everyone else. There were times when I didn't want to go to the family gathering because there was one of my family members missing. I have 2 sons. And so there was just always, and it could be that he was right there in San Diego, but he was homeless. I didn't know where he was and in his addiction. So that has been my journey with having that empty chair at the table.
I can so relate to some of the things that you're saying. Now it's been a while. I mean, my second son's coming up on 6 years in recovery, but you pinned onto some of those feelings that I've had over the years, exactly, going in the other room and crying because nobody else is talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I had many breakdowns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Charmie, please tell us your story and how you got involved in this advocacy work. And Charmie is on our Moms United steering committee. So, and we're in California, the 3 of us here, but she's in Michigan.
Yeah. See the hat? Yeah.
Old.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gretchen. I love you. I'm so honored to be on screen with both of these other women. My work primarily, initially, was criminal justice and drug policy reform. I was a staff writer for LEAP, for Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. They're now called Law Enforcement Action Partnership. And Moms United has a very active partnership with that organization as well. And so LEAPers, cops and judges and prosecutors who want to end the failed drug war, I call them recovering cops. And my dad was a law enforcer, so I was the bad kid. And when we passed the Medical Marijuana Act in Michigan in 2009, I had a little newspaper and I would travel the state and I asked people, how are the cops in your area? And I didn't believe the first, 10 women that told me about registering in good faith with the state and then having the drug task force show up at your house and threaten to shoot your dog and haul your kid away and all of your cars. And I eventually started bringing those victims, the SWAT survivors, the whitest, most Republican SWAT survivors I could find, because they just kept spitting people out like sausage here in Michigan. It wasn't hard for me to go do the field work and gather these women and take them and testify. It took us about 8 years to actually change the civil asset forfeiture laws in Michigan here. But that's why they were kicking in doors. They didn't have to write down what they took when I started this work. They didn't have to write down what they took from people. And in this way, because of the cannabis laws here in Michigan, I started looking at addiction differently than I ever have before, because I saw my family members and my loved ones who were addicted to heroin like everybody else, because, there's a whole generation of people, you fell off a ladder, blue collar folks, or you hurt your back, even the white collar folks, and they gave you bags of opioids. And they created all these addicts, in my opinion. And then, I watched people get off of it with marijuana, which was bizarre to me as well. I was like, okay, whatever. If it works, it works. So I was successful in getting, with the help of other folks as well, in changing the civil asset forfeiture laws. I did legislative work. I did media work attached to that legislative work. And then I fell in love with someone that I didn't know at the time was a heroin addict. And we had a relationship, about a 4-year relationship, that was quite a learning experience for me. I'll tell you that, before he died of an accidental overdose in June of last year. And throughout that experience, I have been able to live and recognize, while it's happening, everything that I've been learning from all my mom friends, from Gretchen, from everybody at Moms United. I mean, I feel like a backwards person almost, in that I had more information than anybody else I knew in my personal life about harm reduction, about the failed drug war and how it destroys families. And then I got to live it and experience and watch this man, who was the most beautiful, gentle, loving, forgiving person that I'd ever known, be tortured by the criminal justice system and by friends and family. So today, I mean, it's been 1.5 years, so I'm just now getting back into advocacy work. I took a break, and that's where I'm at today. Like, I'm very, very grateful that I had this relationship. I'm glad that I knew what I knew before I got into it. And I was still a freaking mess the whole time, just so you know. Doesn't matter how much you know. When you're dealing with addiction, it's a real thing. It is a real thing, and people need our love and support, period. And because we're the women, I'm also an advocate for women. Like, the gateway to earth is inside of our bodies, and it's the mothers, not the warriors, who are charged with the health and the well-being of the people. And I take that very seriously. It's our job to fix this and help people.
So I said earlier, I'm introducing these advocates, but really you can tell that we're all quite activists. One of our campaigns is True Love, Not Tough Love. And we were told as moms, kind of made to feel like it was our fault that our children were struggling the way they were, not just with their addictions, but with the criminal justice system, that pointing them as, you must have been a bad mother if they were, all that stuff. So we were told to do tough love. We were told that we were codependents, and that campaign is all about debunking that whole philosophy, which is not based on science or fact anyway, and it's quite destructive. So when I hear these stories, and Lizzy in particular, she wasn't going to let this go. She was going to get back in there and be tough as nails and keep coming back till her son got the kind of justice and the life that he deserved, and that she knew as a mother that he deserved. Lizzy, I'd like to go back to you because you did so many things. You just kept hitting at it. She created a documentary about her son. The polls. Can you share a little bit more about that work that you did, and how is Jeremy today?
Jeremy's doing great. He's graduating in a week. He'll have his bachelor's. He's focusing on psychology to help out other people, and ministry. He'll have a degree in theology. He earned quite a few degrees, associate degrees, that is, while incarcerated. He was a role model, and that helped us out too. I encourage anyone incarcerated, stay on the right track. It's hard to do while you're in there, but you can do it. And my fight, it was a lot of work. Every night I'd wake up in the middle of the night thinking, what can I do? Luckily, a wonderful man called one night and said, I'd like to do a documentary with you. Are you game? And the tears rolled down. People, Dan Liffick, he was just incredible. I mean, it's just like, what an angel. I call them my earthly angels. Another gentleman I met at a convention center that I was passing out flyers telling the story. My son's locked up, and people would say, oh, that's not real. I said, please look up the information. 70 years for petty theft. So a guy named Bill Roberts handed me a card and said, I used to work for the public defender's office and I'm a private detective. Give me a call. And he was like a godsend too. I mean, this is a fight where you have to reach out for help. If you don't reach out, you're not going to make it. Don't be too proud. Do everything you can think of. And I mean, another friend of mine, the soccer mom she was known as, she managed with the help of her father to escape from jail. She was locked up for a long time for a simple crime, and they found her 20 years later as Susan Levine. Anyway, she was kind enough to help me out, posted everything on her website. I mean, this is a group thing. Moms United helps us to stick together as a team. I didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't know what direction. I just fold my hands and pray, and anything that popped in my head, I did it. No hesitation. But it was a lot of work. I was up on the computer just about every night, emailing everyone, writing to senators, writing to my federal representatives, even though it was a state level, anybody I could get to listen. And that's the goal, moms. Don't give up. Keep fighting for your children. I said, Jeremy's come a long way. He knows you did wrong. When he got arrested, we had this frame. Charmie was in for life, and it would make me cry looking at it, but it reminded me, keep fighting, get him out, Picture of my son, Jeremy, in there thinking, I can't leave him in there for life. I felt like he was dead. He was given a 70-year sentence. He was 20 years old. He wouldn't have been released till he was in his 90s. And his little girl would have been 71 upon his release if we hadn't gotten him out. So keep fighting.
So very early on our work, New Path has been around for 21 years now. And very early on, this is a picture of my son who ended up being incarcerated because he was arrested for possession of marijuana, which today wouldn't even be a crime. Right. Based on the laws that we've been able to change. But that this could happen to your son as well. And it happens across all cultures, all socioeconomic backgrounds, etc. So Anita, again, we've known each other for maybe 15 years of that. Mm-hmm. And I've really watched the ups and downs, and it's so much more complicated when it is a co-occurring disorder, right? Mm-hmm. And you made the statement that it's changed from the idea that you treated those two issues separately, which was kind of crazy, to where we've come now, where we're handling it together. So you wanted to share a little bit more about that and how Pharaoh is doing today.
Yes. And then let's look at, there's a third, thing too. My son, of course, is African American. So we know that the criminal justice system, I felt like he had much harsher sentences for very minor crimes than, someone else. And so, we were dealing with that at the same time. And with the co-occurring, I know that probably in the last probably 8 to 10 years is when they, the system finally started to merge in there, and how I left a 30-year career in banking to go and work for the nonprofit NAMI San Diego so that I could, do advocacy work. You can't do it by yourself. You need a path, and you need an organization behind you of other parents and family members, for their loved ones. And I probably have been involved with them probably now 17 years. But I needed, I'm talking all the time. I was at everything I could in order to say, you can't, if you don't treat one, you can't treat one without the other. Yes, my son had been kicked out of sober living homes because he had his antipsychotic medication. Now, so if he stops taking that, there was nowhere else for him to go, upon release from jail or prison. So there was nowhere else for him to go. So what would he do? He would stop taking his medication. And then we are back at square one again. His symptoms return. He goes to self-medicate. And then guess what? He's back in jail. So we were on that roller coaster. I mean, there were periods, 2, 3, even 4 years. Maybe we hadn't got to 4 years yet of great recovery. And we know that recovery doesn't mean cured. It just means that he is, receiving the treatment he needed for his mental health. And he was not, using substances. And so he would have much success. I mean, he's been in many paths, the Stretch for Sobriety, and on their calendar, their recovery calendar. And he's been a peer mentor. He was even the secretary of his NA group at one time. And so I also saw, so I knew it was there. I knew he could be successful in his recovery because I would see it. But him having, again, the mental health, and he'd always tell me, Mom, he would say, wait, what is that term that they say? Relapse is a part of recovery. He would tell me that, sometimes he'd learned that through, I guess, the NA portion of it. But for him, having the other condition would kind of make it worse. So today, here in 2020, one of, I think, the worst years anybody living would say, my son actually, for the last almost 6 years now, he has been in recovery from substance use. He has been compliant with his behavioral health treatment. So he's been living a really good life. He branched out. He's 43 years old. And just this year, right, really around the time COVID was starting, he wanted to start to live independently. He was living with us at home. And he wanted to start living out independently. And we started out, I didn't think of this. I said, is it, trying to him get an apartment. He does have a source of income because he is a veteran. It took us 15 years to get his a discharge upgraded, where he now receives benefits, and that was about 5 years ago. So he has, an income to do that, but he's almost starting out in independence, 20 plus years, beyond his beyond others his age, but he's enjoying it. It's working. He's in like an extended stay hotel where he has the resources around him that he needs. He can walk to the store. He can go to his appointments, and we stay in contact by by texting and calling each other. And for the first time, I have been able to relax as a mother and feel like I can live my life. I actually went away for 1 month, to stay with my
Wow.
sister in Northern California. And last year, this is a little funny story, is that when I retired from NAMI in 2018, my husband had been retired and he really loved watching Let's Make a Deal. So I wrote away for tickets. We went on Let's Make a Deal. And who did they pick? Me. I was dressed as mustard. My son was dressed as a hot dog. And my husband was dressed as a fisherman. But we won a trip to Berlin, Germany. And I always say, oh my God.
Oh,
So last year, we actually got to go. Just think if it had been this year, that wouldn't have happened. But we got a wonderful trip, and we added on a few more weeks and stayed there for almost 3.5 weeks. So after all the years of canceling vacations, a lot of people don't know, with us as advocates and caregivers, they refer to it in the mental health world, how much we do. I wouldn't go anywhere that I couldn't not walk, drive, fly really quickly back. So going out of the country would have been out of the question, but so things are getting better, definitely better in these few years. Like I said, 2020 will be gosh, COVID and everything else, but yet it was a year of transition for my son.
Well, you so deserve that vacation and the peace of mind that you have now. On a sad note, because of COVID-19, overdoses are really up. It's very, very sad out there. The isolation and the lack of services. I saw a statistic that says that overdose or drug use deaths, including overdose, are up 13% since the pandemic started. And this is across the country. So I was talking to Charmie yesterday. She mentioned something about taking care of yourself by letting go of some of it. And I think since this is, we're right in the middle of the holiday season, many people out there have a really tough few weeks to go. There's so many emotions during the holidays that, if you would just share a little bit what you said to me yesterday about, the importance of taking care of yourself.
I think I can remember. I have a really, really important question for you, the woman that just spoke, not Lindsay, but I'm sorry, Anita.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Did you travel to Germany dressed as a hot dog and mustard?
Oh gosh! Oh my gosh! No, I think they would have. They really would have been. They would have put us off the plane probably. But the people there were so wonderful across, and we went there. But we told them how we got to come. Everyone loved hearing how we ended up there on a game show in the States. Yeah.
I loved hearing that story, and I can tell you that I likely what I was trying to encourage Gretchen to do yesterday was one of two things that I was given after my boyfriend died. I sat on my porch and meditated for 3 months. I don't know who fed the kids. I don't know. They're old enough; they can feed themselves. But it was definitely a time of my life where I just sat there and meditated, and I got 2 very important bits of consistent information through meditation, which was that I was only allowed to do 2 things from now on, which is mind my own business and let go immediately of anything that I can't do something about right now. So that sounds great, and, be the peace you want to see in the world. All that stuff sounds great. How do you put it to action in your life? Especially for women like us, Lindsay, it doesn't surprise me that people came forward with generous offers to assist you because you worked your ass off, sister. I mean, it does not surprise me. You're going to get attention when you speak the truth, because the truth always rises. When you speak the truth in this way, you're going to get that kind of help and attention. And you know, that was last fall. And then, so I started meditating every day, and I had to learn how to forgive my boyfriend and myself of everything as it rose when it comes up, because he's never coming back. He's not coming back to breakfast. I can't be mad at him. I can't be mad at myself. And once I like pushed through that, I started to think like, why should I wait for people to die to do this? Why should I wait for somebody to be dead to be like, I don't really give a fuck what you do. I'm so sorry. You know, I swear all the time. I'm so sorry. I don't really care what you do. I'm going to love you anyways. If I can't, I'm going to look away at something I do love. I'm going to think about your story. You and your husband going to Germany dressed as a hot dog and mustard. Like that lifts my heart. And that's what our job is right now during this pandemic. It's to show people that there's hope. To show people that even if you can't see the hope, you have to find that place where it lives. And you have to just stay there as much as you can. I think right now during this pandemic, people are either doing that, they're releasing the things that no longer serve them, and that includes systemic racism and sexism. I mean, it's just blowing up everywhere, all of it. So you're either letting go and sorting out how to sit with yourself and be okay, or you're running into the desert screaming with your head on fire and flailing your arms. You know, we're in lockdown, you know, you either figure it out or you don't. Is that what I said to you, Gretchen?
Something like that. And what it tells me is it's time to take a deep breath, and you know, wrap all your loved ones in your heart, and if you can't hug them in person, you know, honor them all during these holidays, and hopefully 2021 is going to be a wonderful year, and we will be back next month. It's a month away, with conversations about our Mom's Resolution campaign. In the meantime, if you have a loved one that is missing or has been missing in the past due to the failed war on drugs, please go ahead and submit that on the Moms United Facebook page, and we'll add it to the album. And if you're not a member of Moms United on Facebook, please join us. We have a lot of campaigns, and as you can see by the work of these women, your voices matter. It does count, and we can, in fact, make the world a better place for not only us, but our children, our grandchildren. And so thank you, Lizzy, Stewart. Thank you so much.
You're
Anita,
welcome. Continue your fight, please. We're in the process of making a movie to help others called Unjustice Sentencing. We're hoping it'll come out. COVID's put a tamper on it. This COVID time, I have people writing to me from prison all the time. Even though my son is home, I continue my fight, and I know you ladies do. Charmaine, incredible story, and Anita, I'm jealous. I haven't gotten to work with TJ, okay?
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for telling your stories. Three beautiful women.
Thank you. Thank you for
Gretchen.
inviting us.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
mamas.
Bye.